The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and this hour I have got a gentleman that I've had the pleasure of having on the show before. His name is Jason Offutt, and we're going to be talking to Jason about many things this hour. We're going to be talking to him about cryptozoology as well as other things that interest Jason. But I'd just like to remind everyone that we're coming to you tonight on Simul Radio, Simul TV, X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, iHeartRadio, and Xeon Radio as well. Now, my guest, as I said, is Jason Offutt. He grew up on a farm near Orrick, Missouri. In his life, he's been a farmhand, journalist, photographer, bartender, and the mayor of a small town. He's also a Dungeons and Dragons playing, Star Trek watching, conspiracy theory believing nerd. Hey, my kind of guy. Jason's books include the upcoming book on cryptozoology, Chasing American Monsters, Creatures, Cryptids, and Hairy Beasts. The novel Bad Day for the Apocalypse, its sequel Bad Day for a Road Trip, a parody of Survival Guide, 4 books on the paranormal, and others. Jason also writes a weekly syndicated humor column. He lives with his family in Northwest Missouri, where he teaches college journalism and keeps humanity safe from the inevitable invading Martian space army. Jason, welcome back to the X Zone. Great having you with us.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much for having me back on. This is indeed a pleasure.
Jason, tell me about the invasion of the Martian space army.
Well, you know, it was told to us in great detail by that great seer H.G. Wells back in the late 1800s. Mm-hmm. So we've been preparing for some time. I'm just following what people before me have done and stocking up on beef jerky and making sure I watch the skies.
Well, you know, I'm glad you're there, my friend. I'm glad you're there for us all. Congratulations on all your books, but I understand you've got a new book coming out called What Lurks Beyond.
Well, yeah, I've got this. This book is it's out. It's out now, and it was really fun to research because I wrote a few years ago a paranormal column for a newspaper, mm-hmm. and I started getting all sorts of people contacting me, and I'm like, wait a second. A lot of these people are from my home state or neighboring states, and then again, oh, wait a second. A lot of these people are fairly close to where I live. So I decided, maybe I should look into somewhere very close to my house. So I picked a 100-mile radius, right? Put a pin in the map, measured out a string to see how long 100 miles would be, put a pencil on the end of it, and made a circle. And I searched for all the paranormal things I could find within that circle, and I found quite a few.
Yeah, I made a mistake. What Lurks Beyond is published, but you've got the new one coming out, I believe, in March, entitled Chasing American Monsters. So we'll talk about that one later on. I'm sorry about that, my friend.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
So tell me about this 100-mile circle, and what kind of events were there within that 100 miles?
Well, whenever you're researching the paranormal, the first thing you find is a ton of ghost stories.
Yeah.
I mean, ghost stories are absolutely everywhere, as I've found all around the planet. So I found plenty of ghost stories, and I had to leave quite a few of them out because I didn't want this to be a book of ghost stories. But I also found some UFO encounters, a couple fairly famous, some that Brad Steiger had investigated and Jacques Vallée had investigated as well that I included. But I found a case of demon possession, of a dog man, a time travel, the late great Art Bell named this guy Madman, and just so many different types of paranormal activity just within 100 miles of my house that it was kind of creepy and amazingly awesome at the same time.
Tell me, why do you think the paranormal is so popular these days? Here we are in the year 2018, and yet the paranormal seems to be more popular now than it ever has been.
It kind of comes in waves, actually. Yeah, but it is extremely popular now. Probably, and you're right, probably more popular now than it really has ever been, because our media is more invasive in our lives as it's ever been. But generally, the paranormal, the waves that come in, has to do with the economy. It has to do with the state of the world. Whenever the Great Depression hit, one of the biggest escapes for people was going to the movies and watching Dracula or King Kong or Frankenstein or The Invisible Man or those type of monster movies that came out. That kind of escapism, because there was something bad, something wicked, something that was affecting people negatively, like the Great Depression. But at the end, the good guys won. Sorry, guys, listeners, that was in the 1930s, so no spoilers. I didn't do any spoilers because the good guys did win. And the literature of the Victorian age had a lot to do with ghosts. World War II, we had Foo Fighters in the war zone. So whenever there is some sort of unrest, it seems that the paranormal shows its head. Whether that's because there's more energy in the world, more negative energy that the paranormal is attracted to, or we just see more things. That's up for debate.
Yeah, and I'm sure the media as well as the internet has a whole lot to do with it.
Well, right now, right now especially, because the paranormal shows are immensely popular, and they have been for about the last 10 years. I would think. I grew up when I was a kid in the 1970s. I was glued to Leonard Nimoy's In Search of. I absolutely love that, but that was a rare show. Now they're on every network.
They were the beginning, and then in the late 80s we had the X-Files and some of the other great shows that happened. Bob Kiviott's work with Fox TV, and it just seems that people started coming out of the woodwork with their stories. And I've been doing the show now going on 29 years, and there is still more and more information coming out, except there's one little problem I have with it all. The stories are the same. They vary a little bit, but still there is no evidence.
Hello?
Yeah, no, I was saying that I've been doing the show for nearly 29 years now. Talked to over 4,500 guests individually, at one time or another. And yet, when it comes to the claims of the paranormal, it's missing the most important element. And that is proof, evidence.
Right. Yeah, and that is going to continue to be a serious problem. I wrote a piece a few years ago and put it online, and I got a lot of positive feedback and a lot of negative feedback. But my basic point was all of the ghost hunters out there, all of the Bigfoot chasers, all of the people trying to find some kind of paranormal evidence, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they find definitive evidence. You know, if they record this EVP, this is it. This is right here. Yeah. This EVP, I know I captured a ghostly voice. It wasn't done in a lab. It wasn't done under the scientific scruples of a doctor.
Sure.
Unless something is repeatable, it's not going to be proven.
I don't think you're right there, Jason. And I think that in the case of Bigfoot, if someone was to come up with a cadaver of a Bigfoot, or in the case of a UFO, an actual crash, instead of all this supposition, all these cover-up theories and conspiracy theories, I think people would be more likely to say, you know what, it is real. And I often wonder if ghost hunting and all the little para groups that are forming around the world is just not another way of socializing with people when you have something in common with them. And we've got to take our first break, so please stand by, Jason. Exonation, Jason Offutt is our special guest, and his website is www.jasonoffutt.com, and that's www.jasonoffutt.com. And we'll both be back as this hour continues here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on the iHeartRadio Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, Simul Radio, and you're watching us on the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Jason Offutt is my guest this hour. www.jasonoffutt.com is his website. And Jason, as I was saying before we went into this commercial, the last commercial break, it seems as if the paranormal groups of today are people who have found each other where they don't fit in other places of society. And once again, when it comes to the evidence of whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's ghosts, whether it's UFOs, whether it's lake monsters, sea monsters, or whatever, I think for those who call themselves skeptics, in order to become believers, it will not depend on anything that can be scientifically replicated or has to be conducted in a lab at a university or a medical center somewhere. I really think it depends on the physical evidence that is presented by the person, whoever comes up with that smoking gun.
And yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's that was the second part of the article I was talking about. With when it comes to ghost and shadow people and that sort of thing, it's going to take some serious scientific ghost busting.
Sure.
But when it comes to you mentioned Bigfoot and UFOs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I even, in fact, I said these exact words. If you see a Bigfoot, shoot it in the face. I mean, I don't want, a wholesale Bigfoot slaughter, but, all we need is one.
Yeah.
And boom, it's proven. And that's it. It's an endangered species and we move on. It's the same with UFOs. I mean, there are so many stories about UFOs crashed and retrieval by the government and it's been spirited away. Okay. Whatever. There's a lot of those. Could it have happened? Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Could it have not have happened? Same, absolutely. But if somebody gets a hold of one and all of a sudden hits the press, hits the media, puts everything on social media, it's wait a second, look at this.
Exactly.
It's real. Yeah, no, that needs to happen. When that happens, we don't have to have the science stamp of approval because we've got it in our hands.
And when you look at the conspiracy theories that are out there, and God knows every time you turn around there's a new conspiracy theory coming out. But when it comes to the UFO conspiracy theory, the Roswell crash, Kecksburg, and Shag Harbor, and the list goes on and on and on and on. I have a problem with that when it comes to a government conspiracy for two reasons. Number one, we live in an age of computer hacking. If there was the evidence that any government of the world was hiding this data in a data bank somewhere, it would be hacked, and it would be all over social media. That's number one. Number two, if President Clinton could not have his affair with Monica Lewinsky in the White House, the most secure building in the entire free world, without everyone knowing 6 months later, how in the name of heaven have they been able to hide an alien or a crashed UFO for over 50 years?
I'm on board with you exactly, and that goes for the the fake moon landing conspiracy theory people. The government is they something would have spilled. They're not competent enough. The United States government is not competent enough to have hidden that thing for almost 50 years now.
Well, you know what? You're talking about the lunar conspiracy. In fact, Buzz Aldrin came out a couple of months ago, and during an interview, he said, we didn't go there. It was all about money when talking about the lunar landings. So when you've got this raises a double-edged sword, because you've got the UFO community saying that astronauts are coming forward and saying that they've seen UFOs in close Earth orbit on the moon and so on. And then you're saying, and these are supposed to be moonwalkers, Edgar Mitchell for one. And then you've got other astronauts who are coming out and saying, we didn't go to the moon. It was all about money. It was all about the Russian, the Russian-U.S. Cold War. So who does John Q. Public believe?
Oh, yeah, I'm inclined to believe to believe the people who were actually there, and I did not read that. I didn't read that from Buzz Aldrin.
I'll send you the clip. I will send you the audio.
I loved what he said, or what he did at one point. There was a conspiracy theory documentarian.
That was Bart
Seibel, I believe his name is, and
sure,
Buzz Aldrin punched him in the face.
But now Bart is saying, "I told you so." So you've got this conspiracy theory. Then you've got the conspiracy about Alex Jones. Is he really Alex Jones, or is he another person who allegedly died years ago? And Alex Jones, is the reinvention of this person who never did die. So here you've got people who are just tuning into what you and I have talked about for many years, and they are getting smack dab in the middle of fake news.
Right. I mean, what is there to believe anymore?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I put on my bio of, I'm a conspiracy theory believing nerd, and I absolutely love conspiracy theories, and some of them, the JFK assassination, why Marilyn Monroe died, those things I still have a ton of questions over. I think my favorite is the fact that one guy claims that Stephen King assassinated John Lennon. I think that's my favorite. I don't put any stock in it. I just think that's funny.
But you don't put any stock into it. A great number of other people don't. But then you've got the people who really believe in their heart of hearts that if it's on the internet, it has to be true.
Right, and I'm a journalism teacher. That's what I teach at my university, and it's really so frustrating to me what has happened to the news media. Mm-hmm. The fact that nobody trusts what they're reading or hearing or seeing, and all of this just compounds what is real and what is not. It's taken this whole thing has taken. What is real and put it in the same category as, things Alex Jones says, or, that Stephen King, allegedly killed John Lennon. And it's all viewed with the same, with the same lens. And it's frustrating. And frankly, it's frightening.
As a member of the media, I find it very disturbing that instead of being reporters and reporting with an open mind and presenting the three sides of any story, and that comes from my days as a cop where, there's three sides to every story, his side, her side, and the truth. And I believe it's up to a journalist to present all sides of a story, all the facts. And when I see what is happening today with some of the major networks, like CNN, what would happen? What would they have to do without President Trump?
Well, right. And it was the same for 8 years. What would Fox News spend their time doing if it wasn't for President Obama?
Right.
Right. It's one of the problems is, and I worked in the print media for 17 years. Mm-hmm. And what I saw happening to them has happened to all of the other media as well, is they've cut back. They've cut back on reporters and editors, and it's hurt the quality overall. And there are still a lot of good people in the media, but a lot of the reporting is shoddy because they just don't have the time to do good reporting. And it's sad. It does everyone a disservice, mm-hmm. And it's just a big spiral of decline, which is going to continue to happen before until somebody. I don't know. Somebody steps in and has the guts to take news first.
Well, and then you've got the allegiances that are forming. You've got CNN with the New York Times and the Washington Post, and you've got this network with this newspaper and that newspaper. And I think that what they are doing is a disservice to those that they're supposed to be presenting, because that's not their job. They're not supposed to pick sides. They're supposed to report the news, report the facts. Yeah, where are the old days of Dan Rather and of course Walter Cronkite? That's
hey, let's throw Canadian Peter Jennings out there. I love Peter.
Yeah.
Peter Jennings was one of the great ones.
Yeah, Keith Morrison, another Canadian that went out of the States, and you've got all this sensationalism, and you and I know from being in the media that in today's society, it's the advertising buck that counts. That is the main drive. The advertising is the driving force behind the success of any media outlet. And in today's society, to get the most readers, the most viewers, most listeners, you have to be sensationalistic. What's the old saying in the newspaper industry? If it don't bleed, it don't lead. Right.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sensationalism has been rampant for a long time. I blame a lot of that on the 24-hour news cycle when CNN finally caught. I'm not blaming CNN, but
why not? I do all the day.
Yeah, but it's just something that happened because they covered news 24 hours a day. They had to cover something, and they'd grab a hold of a news story and just pound it into the dust.
Yeah.
And that has continued to happen because it's paid off. The big one now that I've frankly been following because it's close to home is a college student in Iowa, a young pretty girl.
Let's talk about this because I've got to take my break for the news, Jason. Please stand by. Great talking to you, my friend. Exonation, Jason Offutt is our special guest. His website is www.jasonoffutt.com, and that's JASONOFFUTT.com. Jason and I return on the other side of this break. We're going to get back to the paranormal right here on the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God.
It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Jason Offutt is my guest, www.jasonoffutt.com. All right, before we went to the break with the news, you were just going to tell us about a story near you about a girl disappearing.
Right. Well, then, and this has to do with what the media does, grabbing a hold of a story like a pit bull and not letting go of it.
Right.
It's just a girl disappeared in Iowa. She was a college girl. Good grades, good family, all this stuff, and she just disappeared. And the media has been talking about her for weeks. How many other people have disappeared in that time?
Exactly.
Right. I know. Why latch onto this one person? I mean, she's a young, pretty girl. That's exactly why, and she'll get ratings.
It's just like with the reporting on President Trump about his the Stormy Daniels thing. Like President John F. Kennedy had affairs, Thomas Jefferson had affairs, and the list goes on. And instead of being non-biased, whether it's CNN or Fox, MSNBC, whatever, they're not. They're too focused on either the right or the left. And you know what? That's all I'm going to say about that, because I don't agree with it. I don't think that's true journalism. I think that is sensationalistic tabloid journalism, like the old World Weekly News and Bat Boy.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I'd rather read a story about Bat Boy than generally what goes on in the news today.
Exactly. So let's get back to your book, What Lurks Beyond. Tell me about Herb Schirmer.
Herb Schirmer. Yeah, this was a great case from the late 1960s. Herb Schirmer, he was in the Navy. When he got out of the Navy, he decided that he was a young man. Hey, I like wearing a uniform. I want to be a state patrolman. His family his mom and dad had just moved to Nebraska right before he got out of the Navy, so he went to Nebraska with them, and he went to a small town called Ashland, which was the closest town to where his parents lived, and he was wanting to get his police record, so or his criminal record, which he didn't have, to show the state patrol so he could get a job. And the chief of police said, "Well, we need a patrolman. Would you like to work for us?" And he said yes. The people in the town didn't like him because he was really hard nosed.
Oh, okay.
He'd go up on Lover's Lane, run all the kids off, take their beer and dump it in front of them.
Oh, so he was doing his job.
He was just doing his job, exactly. Well, one night he went outside of town. There were a number of businesses on the highway, and he just went and shook doors to make sure they were locked and there was no trouble out there. And he noticed a couple of red lights at the end of this highway near a turnaround. So he went down there to check them out because he thought that it was an overturned truck.
Right.
And when he got there, he saw a disc with a red line around it, and then the next thing he remembered, it was 20 minutes later by his watch, and all he knew is that he saw a UFO because it was this disc hovering about 6 feet off the ground. So he drove back to the police station, and the only other person there, because it was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, something like that. The only person there was an older police officer who said, "Herb, do not file this in a report. You will regret this the rest of your life." So Schirmer was young, so he wrote it in a report. And the next day, the nearest newspaper, the nearest big newspaper, the Lincoln Star Journal wrote a story about it, and instantly he was national news. It hit the AP wire, and the press was all over him. The town didn't like that. He was hung in effigy in the local cemetery. There were, his name was spray painted on streets, and things were getting bad until the Condon, the people at the Condon Report at the university in Colorado, contacted him and said, "We really want to talk to you." And his police chief said, "Sure, take a week off, go out to Colorado and talk to these people." And he went out there. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who had interviewed Herb Shermer, and said that he was pretty sure that Herb, at least to him, was telling him the truth. I also interviewed Brad Steiger while Brad was still alive.
Yeah.
He passed away in the last year. Brad had interviewed him as well as undergoing a hypnotic session with him, and a hypnotic regression session. And Herb started telling Brad and the hypnotist that while he was, unconscious, that he saw a person walk from the ship. And this person was wearing a uniform and a close-fitting hood. He had a feathered winged serpent badge on his chest and an antenna coming out of his ear. And this guy walked up to him and said, "Are you the watchman?" And Shermer, being the police officer, said, "Yes, I'm the watchman." And Shermer said that under hypnosis, that this alien took him inside the spaceship and showed him how the propulsion system worked, and the fact that they had to take water from the Earth in order to be able to leave again. And that was it. It hit the press. More after that. And Shermer got a book deal. Swore in newspaper accounts that these aliens kept coming by to visit him, and ended up at one point waking up in the middle of the night holding a gun to his wife's head because of all the pressure. And at that point, he was like, "Okay, I'm finished. I don't want to be a policeman anymore." And he left town. He and his wife moved to South Carolina, and he became a roofer and doesn't talk about his experience anymore.
I remember talking to two fellow police officers in a small Quebec community that they actually chased a fireball, and this is how it was described as a fireball, along the main thoroughfare of this little town in Quebec along the Ottawa River. And when I said to them, I said, "Well, what did you do?" And they said, "Nothing. We wanted to keep our jobs."
Right, and I'd interviewed a Kansas City, Missouri police officer who told me a story that had happened to him 30 years before, and he said he and a fellow officer had stopped in a park to fill out some reports before they went back to the station, and all of a sudden a light came over their head, and they both looked out the window, and there was a UFO hovering over the police car, and neither of them told anybody because they didn't want because they would be taken off duty, and have to go under the care of a psychiatrist for a while. So I just really wonder how many people in that kind of position don't say a word and have so many stories just because they were afraid of their jobs.
And yet I remember receiving a call while I was on duty as a police officer in Quebec to investigate a UFO report from the wife of an RCMP officer. And when I got to the residence, the wife and their eldest daughter were still shaking. And they described an event that they were driving along. It was about 10, 11 o'clock at night. This light in the sky came down close and started following them. And they just hightailed it home, called the police. And if it was, like here you've got an RCMP officer's wife. She was a school teacher. He is a very well distinguished and he's got so many medals for bravery and everything else while in the RCMP. And here he says, listen, if my wife said that happened, it happened. So, you've got the mix there, Jason. You've got the mix. You've got those who are willing to go on record, like Shermer did, and then like the two other police officers that you were discussing who didn't, and as well as the two police officers that I talked to who didn't because they wanted to keep their job. And yet, in the case of the RCMP officer's wife, she wanted to go on record because she believed what she saw was a UFO. Which brings up another question. How much of what people see is based on their belief and not on what is really there?
Well, and that's one of the problems when it comes to reporting on eyewitness. Not just reporting on eyewitnesses, but police getting eyewitness testimony, is that people are wrong a lot. If I saw somebody run out of a bank, holding a gun, and I thought he was holding a pistol and wearing a yellow jacket and a red hat. Mm-hmm. Somebody else might have seen him holding an AK-47, wearing a blue jean jacket, and not wearing a hat at all. So, it's eyewitness testimony, although it sounds like it should be the most credible, really, really isn't.
We've got to go to our final break, but while we're going to the break, I'll just share a little ditty with you that I know from firsthand experience, that in an academy class, while the cadets and the police force were being taught, I think it was traffic duty, somebody walked in, staged a hold-up with the instructor, and took off. The question was, what did he look like? What was he carrying and everything? Very few people got the fact that the robber was actually holding a banana. So there you go. We'll be back on the other side of this break with our good friend Jason Offutt as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. For more information about Jason, visit his website, www.jasonoffutt.com. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV.
For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Jason Offutt is my special guest this hour, X Zone Nation. His website is www.jasonoffutt.com, and that's JASONOFFUTT.com. First of all, Jason, always a great pleasure talking to you, and looking forward to having you back on in the future. I want to thank you very much for your 6-hour course offer, but I think I'll pass that for now. You never know what will happen in the future. But, you know, talking about, first of all, Brad Steiger, a wonderful man and a great loss to the paranormal community as well as to the literary community. Art Bell, another great guy, another great loss. So just to our listeners, I've had the pleasure of talking to both these gentlemen, and they truly were great, and they certainly are legends in our own time.
Well, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Sure.
My very, very first radio appearance, the host had interviewed Brad Steiger the show before. Mm-hmm. And the very first thing I said to him was, Mike, thank you so much for having me on right behind Brad Steiger. Just because of the fact that, it was going to be a letdown because it was Brad Steiger.
No, he was a great guy, and had him on the show many times, spoke to him on and off air many times, and he certainly will be missed. We were talking about Schrimmer and how he underwent hypnosis. Now, a lot of people have no faith in hypnosis. There are those people who have faith in hypnosis. And even the hypnosis, the regression hypnosis that Bud Hopkins did has now been disputed by his ex-wife or partner as it all being, nothing but a lark. What is your opinion of hypnosis?
At one point, I thought it was total bunk. Mm-hmm. Back when I worked in the industry, I wanted to do a story. I had eventually got to the point, because in the newspaper industry, you don't get to write about the paranormal, unless something really big happens. But I had started editing an entertainment magazine for the paper I worked for, and I had a paranormal issue. And I wanted to do past life regression. So myself and another reporter who's from Hamilton, Ontario, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
We went to this hypnotist who did past life regression, and he was all of a sudden he was like, I don't want to do this. How about I write the story and you go into past life regression? So I did, and I didn't think I could be hypnotized. I didn't know what it would be like, but I really didn't think it would happen. And all of a sudden, a world opened up mm-hmm. that I had never seen before. And it was like I was watching television, but with my emotions wired into the program. And I knew what I was seeing was me. Right. And I knew what I was seeing was also my wife, who was my wife now, then, at whatever time this was. And it was beautiful and wonderful. And then she died during childbirth, and I ended up being so, under, depression that, because this happened, that I ended up drinking myself to death in this, in this scenario. And when I was taken out of the hypnotic, regression session, I was wet with tears. I was absolutely exhausted. I had been crying this entire time. Whether that was just a trick of my mind, I have no idea. It very well could have been a trick of my mind, probably was, but it could have been, me seeing a past life. But the emotions that it dragged from me were, it still hits me in the gut to this day.
Wow. Like once again, I believe it's a matter of personal preference if you want to believe or if you don't want to believe. But I think one of the main skewing points that I use when it comes to the validity of hypnosis is that it's not admissible in a court of law.
Right, yeah, and like I said, I don't know if, I'm not banking anything on this. I'm just saying what I felt.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I wouldn't, if somebody said I was hypnotized and know this, I wouldn't put any stock in it. I just know what I felt.
So after studying all these cases within 100 miles, see how I'm bringing us back there, of your residence, what is your take? Did anything that happened or any witness that you talked to change your mind on something that you may not have been 100% believing in? Was there any aha moment? Was there anything that shook you at your very roots?
Yes and no. I mean, when it comes to belief,
Yeah.
I believe what I know. I saw a full-bodied apparition as a kid, so are they ghosts? Yeah, I kind of think so. I've seen some weird things, weird lights in the sky. There's weird things up there. Are they from, Alpha Centauri? I have no idea. I just saw something weird. But what I generally do as a journalist is just I ask people questions and they tell me their stories and I write about it.
Right.
I think the one thing that may have gone a little ways into convincing me was because I knew the people. I went to church with them, and this boy, he was an adult when I talked to him, but he had grown up in an old house and had seen shadow people as a kid, and at one point, this one specific shadow person he knew because it retained the same shape. It kept getting closer. It kept going from the corner of his eye, more into the forefront. And then at one point, it peeled back the hood, and he could see this red face that was deeply scarred, and it started telling him to do things that he felt compelled to do. It told him other things that he didn't want to do, and it scared the hell out of him. Like this entity didn't like his girlfriend. He was like, kill your girlfriend. He didn't like his father. Kill your father. His girlfriend and father were both deeply Christian. And when this kid woke up after going to church one Sunday morning, getting a splitting headache in the church because that entity was sitting next to him, and the entity telling him to go out to his truck and just drive, this kid woke up, hours later, not knowing where he was. He'd driven hundreds of miles away. He realized at that point, there's probably a problem here. But if I would have interviewed anybody else, I would have thought, that's a cool story. I'll write about it. But I knew the people that involved, and everybody kind of corroborated this story. The father himself had seen the entity at one point. So,
wow.
Yeah, that made a pretty big impact on me.
Listen, I've got about 2.5 minutes left, Jason. What was your favorite story from the book?
Jim the Wonder Dog.
Jim the Wonder Dog.
Jim the Wonder Dog, and that one I cheated. I didn't put it in the book proper. I put it in an appendix.
Okay.
It was 126 miles outside the radius, but it was in the hometown of my wife's hometown.
So you kind of cheated a little bit here.
I specifically told the reader I cheated.
Okay, all right, so you really didn't cheat. Okay.
So I really didn't cheat. Okay. So back in the 1930s, a man named Sam Van Arsdale, who owned the Ruff Hotel in Marshall, Missouri. He was a big hunter, and a buddy of his from Louisiana gave him a dog, a hunting dog.
Oh.
And it was a joke because it was the run of a litter, and it was an English Llewellyn setter. And it was a joke, but the dog ended up being an amazing hunting dog. It seemed to know exactly where the birds were. And there were stories in the local magazines and newspapers about how great this dog was. And then all of a sudden, the dog owners, Sam Van Arsdale, realized that when he said things, this dog would do what he said. And after experimenting, he discovered that, in the hotel, people would gather there on a Saturday.
Yes.
And if he said things like, hey, go find the man from Kansas City, this dog would go up to a person. And sure enough, that guy would be from Kansas City, Missouri. He would say, go find, the person with, $20 in her purse. And he would go up to a woman, and the owner would walk up. I just told the dog to go find somebody with $20. Do you have $20 in your purse? Well, yeah, that's all I got, $20. Eventually, he found out that the dog could read. He could find license plates. He would the owner would write notes on a piece of paper, show it to the dog, and the dog would go do what the note said. He had other people write notes in German, Italian, Latin, shorthand. The dog would follow everything that was written on the note. The dog would he correctly predicted Kentucky Derby winners, presidents. If a pregnant woman would come up, he would predict if it was a male or if it was going to be a boy or a girl.
And I'm sure if the dog was here, he would predict that right now. You and I have to say so long.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm not done with the dog, but
All
that's
right.
good.
We'll have you back on to finish the story. Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure
Rob,
talking
thank
to you.
so much.
Hey, continued success, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone.
So do I.
Take care, my
Have
friend.
a good evening.
You too. Jason Offutt has been my guest this hour, X Zone Nation. We'll have to have Jason on because I want to find out more about the dog. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.